Well, could babies born at 22 weeks premature survive? A new study found that a small number of babies were able to survive. This now poses the question to hospitals around the nation. I had a conversation earlier about this study with Dr. Helen M. She is the Associate Medical Director of the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit at Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital in New York. Dr. Towers, welcome to Arise America. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us. It's an interesting study with their findings, particularly about how premature babies, babies born before term, are treated so differently from hospital to hospital. Before we get to that, sort of take us through what the typical outcomes are for a baby that is born as early as 22 or 23 weeks.
Well, I would say from my experience, and generally the experience of the United States and other places, that the outcome at 22 weeks is uniformly bad. There have been exceptional babies, which this paper refers to, where the children have actually survived a course, many of them with severe developmental delays. It is the most exceptional baby that would survive at 22 or 23 weeks intact.
Is there any way to predict which baby that would be? Is there any factor that controls that?
Well, we would generally say that a female gender is in favor of a better outcome. Having received prenatal steroids is also another factor, but many premature women prior to delivery do not have time to complete the 24-hour course of steroids prior to delivery.
So let's get to the nuts and bolts of this study, and what I found so alarming and very surprising was how widely varied the treatment, if at all, premature babies get from hospital to hospital. If you can, just sort of summarize that for our viewers.
I think we really do need to make sure that everybody understands that it is really only those infants at the threshold of viability that we are referring to. These are the children that are at gestational ages of 22 to 26 weeks, the study went on to. But certainly there remains a lot of concern about the outcome at these very peri-viable ages of 22, 23 weeks gestation. At 24 weeks, the majority of the institutions did, in fact, make efforts to resuscitate. It is the period of 22 and 23 weeks that remains the great area of concern for most people.
And in these cases, there were some hospitals that provided no treatment at all, or what is called comfort care.
Correct.
And then some that did perform some, what we would commonly know as heroic measures to try to save these babies. Why is there not uniformity here?
This is an area where the outcomes are being studied with increasing vigor. There is a lot of effort put into discussion with the parents about what are their wishes, because they will likely be dealing with a child who may end up subsequently with severe developmental delays. Therefore, at the threshold of viability and with areas of concern and uncertainty about long-term outcome, we have included the parents as part of the decision-making process. And many times it is the parents themselves who say, I would not like to have heroic measures made on this particular child. There are other factors that come into the fertility and the subsequent pregnancies of these women, because sometimes emergency cesarean sections are performed at a very early gestational age. These may end up with them being classical cesarean sections, will likely result in being repeated cesarean sections for all future deliveries. And that is indeed a big delivery decision to be made.
Got a little bit of time left, and I want to try to get to two things. First of all, you mentioned parents. That's a very important aspect of this conversation. For parents who perhaps, might think that they need medical care at an early point in their child's gestation, what questions should they ask either their OB or the hospital to determine the overall philosophy at that hospital, what they can expect?
I think that's a very wonderful question to ask. And it is hoped that the relationship that the obstetrician engenders with their patient is that of trust and an acknowledgement that we do not know what will happen to all babies at the time of their delivery, nor do we know the time of delivery. And therefore, conversations like that about prospects of what if something happened, what if you went into early labor. It is really for the parents and the family to feel very secure in a decision that may have lifelong interest for them and for the child. and the pregnancy and subsequent pregnancies. It's a very complex issue that is not easily solved, and I think is really open to many more discussions and debate.
I think that's probably the key there. Just have to ask the questions, have that open line of communication. Before I let you go, but let's talk about some good news here. The truth is that viability for a fetus that's born prematurely is much better now at an earlier delivery date than it used to be. For instance, a 27, 28-week old fetus can survive with technology. We've come a long way.
We have come a long way in my lifetime. And at 27 and 28 weeks, we would have expectations that these children would be born alive, and the vast majority of them will hopefully be intact and be regular children running around providing joy to their parents. Unfortunately, the discussions around the lower level of gestation will continue for a while to come, because we are working with the biology of a fetus that is considered immature for extrauterine life and needs excessive, sometimes, but certainly mechanical ventilation and other interventions that indeed carry a burden of suffering with them. And we have to be conscious of what we impose upon these tiny babies.
Right. There's still a lot of mystery and certainly a lot of complexity.
A lot of complexity.
Dr. Helen Towers, a pleasure to speak with you.